Who likes conflict? Anyone? You, I guess nobody really, huh? Well, there are some who say that they like conflict. You may be one of those people. And hey, I can appreciate conflict too. But when we really get real with ourselves and each other, do we really like conflict? Probably not. Like, it doesn't feel good, okay? Like, conflict can be a really good thing if done properly, but for the most part, it doesn't feel good. So many people actually shy away from conflict. We try to avoid it by people pleasing, or we try to get away from it by lying about what we really want, or staying quiet, not actually using our voice because we're afraid of actually having conflict with somebody else. So I'm here to help you out with some things that I've learned about conflict that I think you'll find helpful. Number one, listen. I've talked about this before in other videos. Listening is such a huge part of relationships. Research shows that only 10% of us, 10% of us listen effectively. That means that in a room of 30 people, only 3 people are listening. Are you one of those people? Clap once if you can hear me. Listen with open ears and as much of an open heart as possible, especially when we're talking about a personal conflict. Business conflict is just as important, by the way, to have an open heart when we're listening because we can really hear things that aren't being said. But when we're talking about personal conflict, we can hear the things that not only people are not saying, but the things that they're trying to communicate to us. But because conflict occurs when our perspective differs from their perspective, it's possible that we're really going to need to open up our ears and open up our hearts to really be able to hear what they're seeing and what they're saying. What they're saying may even sound wrong. But if we're really listening and we really take it to heart that the person in front of us is doing the best that they can with what they know and what they've got, and we're doing the best that we can with what we know and what we've got, and hey, by the way, many people think that their way is the right way. So if I choose to listen to the person in front of me, I'm probably going to learn something, either about them, about the situation, or about the relationship. Number 2, ask clarifying questions. And ask these questions, by the way, not to listen for ammunition to fire your next shot, if you know what I mean, or kindling for your next fire rebuttal. Ask clarifying questions to really understand what the person is saying. If you really don't understand their perspective, maybe it's about context, maybe it's about where they're coming from. When I mentioned listening, I mentioned that what they're saying may sound wrong. So if what they're saying may sound wrong and there's a possibility that the way I'm thinking or you're thinking could be wrong too, then there's a really good opportunity to ask a question. If there's something that you don't understand about it, then ask, hey, I hear that you're saying X, Y, and Z. However, A, B, and C aren't really clear to me. Can you help me to be clear on that? And then they may ask, what are you not clear on? And then you can get really specific and hash it out. By the way, a lot of conflict requires vulnerability because we've got to be willing to be wrong. We've got to be willing to let the other person into our space, their perspective, their insight, their feelings and their emotions. We've got to be willing to deal with those things. And as well, if we want to truly be heard, we need to express ourselves too. And that takes vulnerability. So ask clarifying questions. Number 3, consider for a moment, maybe a few moments, truly consider where your responsibility is. I know this is a hard one. Nobody likes to do this. Taking responsibility means letting go of our pride, letting the ego take a chink in the armor, and recognize where my words and actions, even though they may not have been intentional, affected you negatively. You know, there's that saying, there's your side, there's my side, and then there's the one in the middle. And when we're talking about conflict, the middle is where the relationship can mend or break. So, effective conflict resolution means I'm reaching across that divide to your side and I'm saying, hey, let's help each other out here. I see what's going on and I'm taking my responsibility for it. And hopefully the other person does the same. And number 4, it's totally okay to take a pause. But for those who shy away from conflict, be very careful not to use this pause as another way to avoid the conflict. It is way too easy to start a conversation, get into conflict, and then shy away from it and say, I need time, I need space, and not actually revisit it. I'm going to tell you a secret here. Conflict doesn't go away just because you don't address it. Things don't just go away with time. In fact, they actually get worse with time because they fester. They're constantly underneath the surface, that unspoken offense that needs to be addressed. And all other problems in the relationship come from that or where that thing came from. There are roots to everything. So if you can, maybe you're pressed for time and you really can't solve the issue right then and there. Take an honest shot at scheduling some time to revisit the conversation. And if you can't, just because emotions are so high or there's really some sort of deep conflict that you are not able to figure out right now, let the person know where you are. Do them that service and say, hey, I'm really in a spot right now and I really don't know how to fix this. And I want to fix this. So let's pick this up later. Can we do that? As opposed to, you know what? I just can't talk about this right now, which is fine. Like you can do that. But if you want to have really effective conflict and you want real healthy resolution, do as much as you can to be in service of the other person. And when both people are doing as much as they can to be in service of the other person, that's when healthy bonds can really be made out of that big C word that causes so much discomfort, conflict. Thank you for listening. And hey, if you heard anything educational, inspirational, or encouraging today, and you want more people to have the opportunity to hear it as well, please make sure that you subscribe, rate and review, and share. And as always, thank you for your support and for being the change that you want to see in the world.